Dear colleagues, we experience a truly exceptional and tough situation right now. None of us has ever experienced a global lockdown of societies and business everywhere at the same time. Our various local and global management and crisis teams have worked very hard over the last few weeks to put measures in place to protect our employees, what we now have to do to protect our business. You're all being informed on an ongoing basis by your local management and crisis teams. But today, in addition to this, Matthias, Gillner and I want to give you an overview on how we assess the impact globally and what measures we have to put in place. Matthias Gillner is here in his role as the head of the international crisis team that he has at the moment next to his normal role on the executive board. Matthias will start with an overview on the health protection measures that we have to put in place for our global team members, and I will then cover the impact that we see on our global business and how we plan to respond to that. But before we dive in, I really want to say that we're very impressed to see the fast and concerted reaction that the global and the local crisis and management teams have put in place. Thank you all for your great solidarity and your caring yet decisive reactions over the last few weeks. And I'm saying that on behalf of my colleagues in the executive board, and I'm sure also on behalf of the board of directors, the trust, and the Hilti family. A special mention goes to the great work that all local and global crisis teams have put in place, and the coordination and overall guidance by our international crisis team. I can tell you, in tough times like this, it's one more time obvious how great it is to have such a strong team in place that can now work with us to handle this impact globally. And with this, over to you, Matthias.
Thank you, Christoph. So we've been in crisis team mode for 2 months now, since the first cases in China surfaced. And I'd like to give you a quick update on what we are doing. The purpose of the international and the local crisis teams is to protect our employees, our assets, including our reputation, and to assure business continuity, so assure the ability to serve our customers as far as possible. The international crisis team is only a coordination body. We decide things that are of global relevance, and we enable the local teams to do their job in the most efficient way. The real work actually happens in the local and the regional crisis teams that are much closer to the activity and take the real decisions on the ground. So let me give you a quick summary of what we're doing to protect our employees. The majority of office staff around the world is working from remote. A big thank you to our global IT infrastructure team for enabling that. Also, a large number of our field sales force is working from home at the moment, wherever it's not safe or mobility is restricted. Most of our Hilti stores are still open, albeit with a different regime, sometimes only on pre-approval or registration, sometimes with limited opening hours. With very few exceptions, all our operational units, plants, warehouses, and tool repair centers are still operating. The few exceptions are India and Malaysia at the moment, where we had to close both our plant in India and the Gillner facility in Malaysia. In the operating plants, we obviously have all kinds of safety measures in place, temperature control, shift work, so that we protect our people. Luckily, so far, we have only a few cases of infections. All of them were acquired outside of the company, and we have no reports of any transmission within the company, which for me is a very good proof that our safety measures are effective. A really big thank you to the different local and regional crisis teams that are doing an outstanding job in managing the situation. So we will also soon publish more and more tips and tricks how to work productively from home, and I thank the global training and learning team for that. The health of our team members has been and will always be our first priority. At the same time, we obviously have to assure business continuity. And with that, I hand back to Christoph to give a brief update on what we discussed in the EMT yesterday.
Yeah, thanks, Matthias. I mean, since more or less 2 weeks or so, it's clear that our existing scenarios for 2020 are obsolete. And we've asked all regions to develop a new set of scenarios in light of what they experience in the various markets that they cover. And yesterday we have reviewed these scenarios with the global EMT in a global video conference call. Now, it's clear that this assessment that we now have, and I will share in a second, is only a pulse check. It's as of today. This can change in the next 3-4 weeks, because realistically we have to say that nobody knows as of today how this crisis is going to pan out and what the impact on us would be. But still, it allows us now to narrow down the insecurity a little bit, and we have assessed that the impact on our business on sales will be somewhere in between a -6% scenario and a -15% scenario globally in local currencies. In all of these scenarios that we calculate at the moment, the negative impact on our profitability is huge, and it requires now very consequent counter-steering on all possible levers. Our cost or OPEX, NSP, our accounts receivables, that we are very sensible when it comes to inventory levels, etc. Wherever possible, we will also make use of short-term work arrangements that are being offered and supported by governments. That doesn't happen everywhere, but there is a number of markets where this is possible, and we will also have to actively manage the vacation utilization this year. We really have to pull all levers now to avoid destabilizing the company financially, and this requires the solidarity and contribution of everybody, from the shareholder to each and every team member. Our clear overarching goal is to protect our jobs and the company as much as possible. Over the next few days, we will now detail out our measures, including what this means for our headquarter population here in Schaan, and will decide on the final set of scenarios and measures in our EB meeting early April. With this, I give it back to Matthias to explain to us what situation we have in our global supply chain. Over to you, Matthias.
So we have not seen and are not expecting any major product availability issues or customer back orders out of the supply chain. Our supply teams have actually been in task force mode since Chinese New Year and have managed the full supply chain. Our 2 Chinese plants and our joint venture with Panasonic is back to almost full capacity. The Malaysia facility of Oakland is closed, but we're looking for alternatives. And as I said earlier, all our logistics and repair centers, with few exceptions, are still operational and serving our customers. On a logistics and tool service side, we have scenarios in place to replace a facility if we would have to close one of them to be able to continue to serve our customers. We have a few isolated product availability issues, but they are typically not just due to the coronavirus crisis, but to other issues as well. Now, the situation in the last 2 weeks has changed dramatically. From worrying about product availability, we're now worrying more about global demand. The logistics team will manually intervene into the demand forecast because we see the demand in different countries coming down. And our plants will go into reduced capacity modes almost all around the world. I'd like to say a big thank you to all the teams around the world, in the plants, in the warehouses, in the tool service centers, and in global logistics for their very professional work that they do. A special thank you to Roland and Rüdiger Kübler for the excellent coordination and cooperation. With this, I give back to Christoph to close with an outlook.
Realistically, this tense situation will be with us now for many more weeks, with the peak of global infections and unfortunately also the death toll not to be expected before May. We all now need to stay focused and disciplined and follow the rules and instructions of our various crises and management teams around the world. What you should take away from this messaging today is that we will do everything to protect the health of our team members around the world and to protect the stability of the company and our business. This does require now very consequent counter-steering, and a lot of unpopular measures. Having said this, at the same time, we must not forget that compared to many other companies, we actually go into this crisis with a very sound financial situation and the big benefit of having a very committed and long-term oriented shareholder. Both of these aspects now allow us to find the right balance of measures now and to avoid hectic decision making. Our shareholder will accept a significant negative impact on our financial results this year. But getting through this crisis requires the solidarity and contribution of everybody. We all have to do that to avoid that we have to cut too deep into our structures, programs and projects. Going forward, the main communication channel will continue to be your local management team and crisis team in your various markets. If more significant global topics are being decided on or we assess situations differently, then we will repeat this kind of video messaging to all of you. We would like to encourage many of you to comment on what you have heard today. Write us comments in Yammer or in Ready, and I promise you that we will do our best to respond to that. With this, we close for today. Thank you all for listening. All the best to you around the world, and above all, stay healthy.